dari Komplek Balai Budaya Minomartani Ngaglik Srempu. Inilah Radio BBM, Jaringan Radio Komunitas Yogyakarta.
Radio Komunitas Balai Budaya Minomartani. Radio Budaya, Radio Warga, Radio Kita
Hello,
Bersama.
Warga Budaya. Thank you for listening to BBM FM Community Radio, Yogyakarta.
Community Radio BBM FM, Creation for Nation.
Radio Komunitas BBM FM. Dukunglah budaya Indonesia.
Selamat petang, Warga Budaya. Good evening, cultural citizens. My name is Malika, and I'm your host for the program Global Chain, where we come together each Wednesday to discuss different cultural aspects from my experiences in Europe mainly. I'm an intern at UGM from Utrecht University in the Netherlands, and I'm in Jogja for another about 7 more weeks. Today's broadcast is about living abroad, redefining home, and creating meaningful connections. Today, we explore what it means to travel freely from a European perspective, and we try to make sense of one Europeanness, both by looking at how European cultures are diverse, but also by looking at how European cultures might differ from those outside of Europe. I'm very excited to present to you someone who has both studied and worked abroad at the age of only 24. First, she did her exchange program in Frankfurt in Germany. Then she did her master's degree in Maastricht in the Netherlands, and then she moved to Eindhoven, also in the Netherlands, for her first job. This is how I got to know her from our time together as staffing consultants. Please welcome Dora.
Hi Dora, welcome to the program. How are you?
Hi Malika, I'm good, thank you. I just got back to Hungary last night, so excited to be here. How are you?
Yeah, I can imagine. Good to hear. I'm also good. I'm in Indonesia, as you know, and I've been here for the past almost 3 weeks. So very exciting, a lot of new things, a lot of changes that I'm sort of trying to adapt to. So that's very exciting. And you've gone through quite some changes as well this week.
Yes,
Please
indeed.
do share what's going on.
Yeah, so as you already know, I quit my job in the Netherlands. So I just left this week. My last work day was on Wednesday. And I decided to move back home for a bit, for 2-3 months, to just enjoy the summer and to travel around. and then
Mm-hmm.
start somewhere new from August or September onwards in a new city, maybe new
Yeah.
country. We will see, but also to just enjoy the summer and some sunshine.
Yeah. Oh, sounds good. And you're mentioning home, and I know that you've been traveling a lot, you've been studying abroad, you've been working abroad. So I'm very curious to hear what it means for you now to be home and what is home to you.
Yeah, so I've been thinking about this, and I think that home is not so much of a place, but more like the connections that you have with people. And
Mm-hmm.
yeah, of course, well, home could be where you grew up at. So for me, that's Hungary, that's Budapest, where my family is, where the
Mm-hmm.
house is where I grew up. But it could also be the cities where you've lived before or where you're currently living and have friends there and have all these connections that make a place feel like home.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
yeah, specifically now, this is Hungary, this is Budapest, my
Yeah.
home. And yeah, just being here with my family.
Yeah. Yeah, that sounds really good. And I recognize as well what you're saying, that it's very much about the people
Mm-hmm.
that makes a home. And I've also noticed with myself, and we've talked about this previously, that the sense of home for me at least has changed
Mm-hmm.
during the past few years as I grow older, if I can say that.
Yeah.
I'm noticing that the certain connections with people or what I'm looking for in a home has changed. So I'm also very curious to hear about that from you, going from being a student to now a young professional, if sort of the sense of home has changed for you over time, and maybe even what kind of events that have shaped that.
Yeah, it really did. Because first, I was really thinking of home as, yeah, the place where I grew up at. But then I moved
Mm-hmm.
to Frankfurt. So,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, not sure if you all know, but I studied in Frankfurt for a while. I did my Erasmus internship there, which
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
means that during my bachelor's, I spent half a year there. And I think that's when it really changed for me because I moved there, and in the first days, of course, I was all alone. I was feeling like, oh, this was such a stupid decision. Like, why did I have to leave everything and everyone that I love just to be here alone and then focus on my studies? But then, yeah, as soon as I started making friends there and have like these valuable connections there, then it
Mm-hmm.
really started feeling like home as well.
Yeah.
Because yeah, just looking around the city, like yeah, or going back there, it's always that I see the spots where I have all these memories at with the different people. And then yeah, when I studied there and then I came back home to Hungary, then I felt homesick on both sides, right? Because
Yeah.
when I was there, I missed yeah, being here, and when I was here, I also just looked forward to going back and see my friends again and just continue my life there also.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I think that yeah, you can have really like multiple homes because yeah, it's where your people are at.
Yeah, no, that totally makes sense. I really resonate with that, and I recognize that. And
Yeah.
then you said, well, you've moved from the Netherlands back to Hungary, which is now home. So Hungary is now home.
Yeah.
And what was missing in the Netherlands for that not to be home? Because you said, well, Frankfurt felt like home. So then you
Yes,
had
it
two
did.
homes, and
Hmm.
that wasn't exactly the same in the Netherlands. So what was different?
Yeah. So what was different is that so in the Netherlands I lived at two places, right? So I studied
Mm-hmm.
in Maastricht. I did my master's there, and then I moved to Eindhoven for my job, and I lived there for 2 years.
Yeah.
And yeah, what I can really tell you is that when I was living in Maastricht, it did feel like home.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and even though it was like during the COVID times, so there was yeah, we couldn't even go to the streets much, and the
It
police
was a lonely period.
crazy period. The police driving by and looking in the windows whether there are only really like three people inside maximum or more.
Yeah.
Yeah, but then I was living together with two guys actually. So I had two
Mm-hmm.
flatmates, someone from Germany and someone from Russia, and we had these movie nights. We had these little rituals and routines like on a weekly basis. And
Yeah.
yeah, we just always yeah had breakfast together and asked each other like, "How are you doing?" And I don't know, it felt like a bit like a family vibe again. And that's why I consider Maastricht. And also I had my friends there, again, like a lot of memories throughout the city. And then it felt like home. So there I didn't have any problems, but then I moved to Eindhoven, and then again it was COVID times, and also I joined the company as the first expat, right? So there were only Dutch people and me. I don't even know how many, like 180 Dutch people in the Netherlands working for Progressive, and then I was the only expat there. Yeah, so then it was a bit harder, because when you join a company as the first expat, then the people are already based there and they have all their circles there, so all their friends, all their family. They are busy in the weekend, busy after work, and that only makes sense, right? Because when I'm here in Hungary, then I always am occupied with all these things. But yeah, as an expat, you also just need a bit more, I think, on the social side. And then, I also started working there, and my language course was also online. So I couldn't really connect with people in Eindhoven, and I couldn't really just create a circle for myself. And then, and then also other expats joined as well, which was really nice, like you and some other, and someone from Turkey and someone from Lebanon. And then it was much nicer already, but still, I didn't have this space that I just need in life. I didn't really feel at home, and that's why I decided eventually to just start somewhere new and give myself a new chance of creating a new home.
Okay. And you're mentioning expats, and what I'm realizing at least is that in certain communities you use expat, in certain communities you use international, whatever we call it. This sense of being in an international community. I'm curious what that means to you, because you're saying, well, I moved to the Netherlands, or you needed, there was only Dutch people, and so what are you seeking a bit in a community that is maybe different from what you're seeking in Hungary? So when you're abroad, what are you seeking in a sort of international community?
Yeah, so like the different energies, I love that. I think that every people adds to you in a way, because all these different cultures, they can just teach you something, and I find that amazing. Yeah, this diverse environment, it really gives me energy to also just in the everydays, honestly. I think it's really fun when people just gather around from all these different nationalities, and they just share their thoughts and feelings, and their behavior is different, and you can learn so much from that. I really love that.
And do you find that you experience that more when you go to other cities than when you stay in Hungary, for example?
Experience what more? Sorry.
So you're saying, well, people come together from different cultures and languages and norms that fuels your energy. So I'm curious whether that is why you are again now looking for opportunities maybe outside of Hungary. Is that as well for this connection?
Yeah, also. Yeah, definitely. But also my friends here, so they also travel a lot, and I get different vibes from them as well, because one of them is living in the US now, one of them just moved back from Germany, one of them used to live in Italy. So yeah, they are all over the place, and then they also give you a different or a similar feeling as expats do. But I think it's also nice to move around, because then you get to know yourself better as well. When you are at a new place, you can only rely on yourself first, and then that's just really exciting, a new adventure every time.
Definitely. And it's interesting what you're saying, that, well, when you move to a new place, you learn so many new things about yourself. Because I was actually talking to a class last week or 2 weeks ago in cross-cultural communication. And we were talking about, reflecting on yourself. And one student asked me, well, how do you reflect on yourself when you're in an environment that is always the same? Like, how do you reflect on your own position in that environment when that environment is the same? And then I said exactly the same thing. Well, I guess the easiest is to move out of that environment, even if it's a new neighboring city, even if it's a new community in the university. I think as soon as you move out of your current environment, you realize that small things like what you eat for lunch is different than what other people eat for lunch. It's super small things that you never thought about. And then that just makes you think like, hey, I'm used to one way of doing it, and there are a billion other ways of doing things.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that's what I meant as well.
Yeah. And you've mentioned a couple of times now the whole moving freely. And then you said, well, you have a friend in Germany, you have a friend in Italy. And I want to talk a bit about being European and having those options to move freely and not having to even check the expiry date sometimes on your passport. You can just go. And I'm curious if you've ever thought about that or reflected on what it means for you to be European.
Yeah, I think it's a blessing, honestly, because you can well, traveling is my biggest passion and hobby at the same time. So if I didn't have this opportunity, well, then I would be really sad, in a sense. But I think it just means a lot of freedom, in your life, because you can just pack your things and go and continue with your life wherever you want to. And and I think that's just amazing. And also it's safe to travel. It's a very good place to be at. I think just Europe in general. And indeed, as you said, you don't even need the passport. So if I want to fly to Berlin now, then I just need my ID card and the plane ticket, and I'm free to go. And for example, we were driving back home, back to Hungary from Maastricht, from Eindhoven, 2 days ago, and yesterday as well. And then also we just crossed 2 borders without even being stopped. So you don't even notice it necessarily that you cross the border from Austria to Hungary or from Germany to Austria, because there's just a little gate and you drive through that. There is no traffic jam there or anything. You just go straight through and you're already in another country. So I think it's amazing. I think it's really a good option to have.
Yeah. And I'm also sometimes wondering if the reason why it feels so easy is because to some extent there's some similarities as well. And other times I think, well, I'm obviously born and raised in Europe, so I do see a lot of differences. And I mention this because now that I'm so far away, I sometimes interact with people here that I guess just like we do as well with Asian countries, tend to mix it a little bit up, tend to talk about it as if it's the same, or so Netherlands or France, I mean, same, potato, just like we do again with Asian countries. And I'm curious, you've been traveling a lot, you've been living in different cities. So what are some of the in the European countries, what are some of the similarities you see where you think it's maybe fair to say it is a European trait? And what are some of the things where you could never mix the countries up because they're just so distinctively different?
Yeah, well, very different, I would say, is the architecture. For example, in the Netherlands, the little canals, you cannot find that really in other places. Or if you think of Venice, there you have the canals as well, but still really different. And also just the colors, like the views of the streets, it's definitely really different. And then looking at the people, the cultural differences, I think that those are still quite how to say, characteristic to certain countries, because I think that that is really something that you can notice unless people travel a lot, because then if you travel a lot, then I think you can just pick some characteristics of different cultures up, and then you are a bit more complex in a sense that you don't really have these cultural things so much anymore. But
like cultural shocks, you mean? Or
like how can I say that? Like, for example, if you think of German people, I think that what I found is that they are really like these precise, strict, hardworking people. I also saw that when I was studying with German people. It's amazing how they just operate in a university environment. It's something else than the other people. But also, if you
How is
think,
that different? I'm curious. How is that different? For example, you've also studied in Hungary. How
yeah,
is that different?
yeah. Well, so when I was studying in Maastricht, it's really close to the German border. So it's like 30 kilometers from Aachen, and a lot of people from Germany came to study, in Maastricht. And then
Yeah.
these students are, how can I say that? Like in a Zoom, because everything was mainly online because of the COVID. But
Yeah.
still, you could see that they were always like raising their hand. They always wanted to talk as much as possible, to share their thoughts and opinions, just read everything that they needed
Yeah.
to as soon as possible. We had like an assignment due in 2 months, and then a guy already like ask the question in the like comment chat so that the professors can see like, hey, I'm already done, like after like 3 days. He still had 2 months, and he was like, I'm already done, where can I submit it? And then the professors
Yeah.
didn't even create a link, but then he was just so eager to say, I think that he was the first one that, but you can still see it, like working as a recruiter as well, that on German CVs you can often see the grades that they received in universities. So for them, for example, it's still really important, I think, that I want the best grade, and I want to show that, I did my university as good as possible. While for some countries, I think more like Italians, like Spanish, I don't know, that's what I noticed. They just want to enjoy the university years more and make the most out of it on a personal perspective. And then, the grades are okay. But also in Hungary, like no one is looking at your university grades. At least not really. You just need a degree and then, some work experience. And that's the most important, not really the grades specifically. Yeah.
Okay.
So that's something that was interesting. Yeah.
Yeah. And are there then certain things that if you would go outside of Europe, you would notice a difference in the sense of there's certain things in Europe that you find we do a bit in a similar way? I don't know if you've noticed something. I'm now very far away, and I find myself sometimes saying, "Oh, I guess I'm European after all," or this was a bit European of me to do. And that is obviously super, super stereotyping and super much putting so many countries in a box. But it's because I don't know if it's because I am Danish or because of me living in the Netherlands, or like I don't know where it comes from that I think certain things, but I just notice it's different from here. And then I tend to say, well, something is European, while in Europe I don't. If I'm in Europe, I would not say, oh, this is very European of me. Then I would specify. So in that sense, I'm noticing on myself that maybe there are certain things that I am not how would you say it? If I'm traveling around in Europe, I don't get the same level of cultural differences, cultural shocks, because there is a certain similarity basis. I don't know if you experience something similar.
That's a bit hard for me to say, to be honest, because I've only lived in Europe, right? So I traveled here and there to other continents as well, but since I'm living here, I've lived here my whole life. It's I don't know if I can really notice that the European things that we do. I think it's just the normal for me, and then I can still notice the differences between the countries, but it's a bit harder to differentiate between being European or not. But what did what were your experiences in that sense? Or what is a really European thing you do in Indonesia?
That's a really good question.
It's your question.
Yes, but you're bouncing it back. Very, very smart. I'm noticing certain things I do, which I don't know exactly where to place. And that is, for example, very quickly asking about. So if people say, "Oh, let's do this. Let's do this. Let's go out for this dinner," and then I find myself, okay, so when and where, and like pointing it down.
Process
like,
control.
Okay, let me put it in my schedule. And I think this is definitely something that's done a lot in the Netherlands. It's also something that's done in Denmark, of locking it down. You mentioned something, it's on my calendar. So in that sense, or um, I said the earlier this week. So with Jan, we went to the Komodo Islands, right, last weekend. We did a
Yes.
lot of snorkeling, and then I noticed that one of my ears started to have this popping feeling, and I was
Yeah.
afraid of getting an ear infection. So I thought, you know what, I'm just gonna give it some painkillers, see if it goes away.
Mm-hmm.
And then I said it to my colleagues. I was like, hey, I forgot painkillers. Does anyone have paracetamol or ibuprofen, just something to take the swelling of my ear? And my colleague went, but Malika, why do you just want to numb the pain? Like, shouldn't you have it checked? And I think that was also something that I thought, oh, that's interesting, because I've known also that the way we deal with uh, sickness, illness, or pain in Europe is very much fast solution.
Mm-hmm.
Let me just take some strong painkillers, move on and work, and this should be fine. While my colleagues were saying, or maybe there are even some natural ways to do it, than to take painkillers for them, that I would have just painkillers in my bag. And maybe this was just specific to a certain, to a couple of colleagues. So it's also difficult to generalize, obviously. But that was something that I recognized, that I do know also from research, that in Europe, we have a bit of this
Numbing the pain.
quick solutions of numbing the pain and moving on.
Yeah.
So then
yeah,
I
I do
also
that
came
also.
home to Jan, and I was like, that was a bit European of me to like pump
Yeah.
down some ibuprofen and move on.
Yeah, no, that's something I do as well. So it might be, a European
Yeah.
thing to do.
Okay. And I'm curious a bit. So you said, well, you left the Netherlands just 2 days ago, I believe. You went through Germany to enjoy it a bit there. Now you're
Yeah.
back in Hungary and enjoying the summer, taking a rest, very well deserved rest, and then looking for something new. And
Exactly.
in that search, what are you a bit looking for in terms of a place, in terms of a city, in terms of a country?
Yeah, so for the next place where I could see myself, I really would like something bigger now, because what I noticed also is that Eindhoven for me felt a bit limiting in size and in opportunities that are happening around. So I would like something more like something really diverse, big, where a lot of internationals are based at, and where you can get everything sorted out in English. So not like something where you have to speak Spanish in order to go to a post office and then send the letters.
Okay.
Something where you can work in English in every aspect of life. And company-wise, something again big and international. That's the most important now, because I would just like to have a lot of opportunities, to not have to be the one who always initiates and seeks out, but something where it's just normal, where people are coming from different countries and are also in for a drink after work, or I don't know, doing something fun in the weekend or something like that.
Yeah.
That's
And why is it important that you can talk English wherever you go? I recognize that it's easy, obviously, but I'm also curious if how it is linked to your intentions with that host country. So obviously, if you would say now, well, I want to live the next 50 years in Spain, I'm assuming you would eventually learn the language. So what is a bit going through your thought process in moving to another country when you say, well, I'd actually prefer that I can speak English?
So I'm still not in the mood for finding the place where I can settle for 50 years or so. It's more that it's more like just moving somewhere. And then, for example, if you think of I heard that in Rome or in Milano, you still do have to speak Italian in some situations in order to be okay. Then that would make it a bit harder, because of course I don't speak Italian. So but for example, Barcelona could really work, because there you can speak English everywhere. And then Berlin could also work, or even Amsterdam could be interesting, because that's also much bigger than Eindhoven, and with bigger companies and more of an international base. So that's what I'm looking for now. And also, Australia plays along because I'm going
Yeah.
to submit my application there as well.
Okay.
Yeah,
And what kind of application is that?
it's like a work and travel visa. So I don't know in Indonesia how easy it is for you to travel to Australia, but for us, you do need like a visa as a European, and then you can
Yeah.
have like a work and travel, for example, which is like a visa for 1 year, and then you can enter Australia and leave it as many times as you want, but just for 1 year, and work there, and also travel freely within. And I think that this age, like being 24, is also just perfect for that, because then again, I would be alone, whole new continent, exploring myself, exploring Australia. It would also be super nice. So it will either be that or a bigger European city. And yeah, I just love it that the options are so open right now. It gives me a lot of energy as well, like planning wise, that your hands are not tied and you can just do whatever you want with your life at this point.
Yeah. I can see that. It is indeed a good time. And how is the considerations of going to Australia? Obviously is further away, but are there any other considerations of going to Australia versus going to another European city?
Yeah, it wouldn't be like this or that. What I am aiming for now is more this and that. So yeah.
And
Yeah.
I like that. This and that.
Yeah, so yeah, I would like to start somewhere, because of course Australia, it takes time for the visa to be approved. I have to do another TOEFL language exam this summer, and then in my application, get a letter from the European Hungarian government that I have I didn't do any crimes in my life so far. So these kind of documents have to be gathered and submitted, and then I would plan that either from January or next summer onwards, because once you get the visa, you can enter Australia within 1 year. So then I would still have time to figure everything out, and then just start until then at a company in August or September in another European city, and then work there for a year or so. And then if I leave to Australia and then they want me back, that's really nice. But if not, then it was also a learning experience, and and then options are open again.
Yeah, definitely. And how does English play a role? Because we've talked a bit about you saying, well, I want to move to a city or to a country where I can go to the post office with my English. So you're speaking English obviously opens a lot of doors. And I'm curious what it would mean for you, obviously, if you couldn't communicate in English, and what it means for you in terms of the communities that you are in because of English.
Yeah, I yesterday just told my dad that it's also really an advantage and a disadvantage that I speak English, because we were in a German restaurant and I ordered in German, and then they asked something back, and then it was more of a complex situation. Then I already switched to English, and then I already started talking English to the person. And then I told my dad that it's really nice. It's so good to speak English, but also it would be much easier to start learning new languages if I didn't have this advantage. So
I really recognize that.
Yeah, right. Yeah, because everyone speaks English, and it's just too easy to switch, and then you don't have to work for communicating in another language. So I think it's a huge advantage. And also, still next to that, you can learn other languages as well, because the more languages you learn, the more how do you say it? The more person you are, or you know what I'm saying? Yeah. And I really believe that it adds to you. You can express yourself in more ways, then that could only be an advantage as well.
Dora, since you've been traveling a lot, you've been studying in different cities, you've been working in different countries, and now you're considering where your next move will take you. So could you share some tips for young students or for young professionals who also want to move abroad and they're moving abroad for their first time? Do you have any tips and tricks to share?
Yeah, well, my advice would be just do it, because I think it really is so valuable. And once you are young, it's just the best way to explore the world, to explore new cultures, and to get to know yourself also better, as we discussed. And my tips and tricks would be, to have like a plan, but I don't think you need like a very specific plan even. Just go and start doing it, and then everything will work out eventually anyways, because you probably speak English, you can arrange everything even when you're already there. So for example, I wouldn't move somewhere without a job to a new city, because I think that's something like nice to have before you move. But otherwise, like accommodation wise and everything, it's sometimes even easier when you are already there and you can actually take a look at the apartments and everything. In life, or go to a bank to open a bank account. On site, it's sometimes just easier. And I think what is also really important, if you are, for example, a student, is to attend all the social gatherings in the beginning, because that's how I also met my friends in Frankfurt and Maastricht as well. To be active even before, to join the Facebook groups and join all the WhatsApp groups, everything, and reach out to people, because the first few days and weeks really give like a how to say, like a
foundation, or
exactly, a foundation for the whole journey. And then you can really create your circle of friends, and then you will feel at home much easier and quicker if you don't do that.
I recognize that. I remember when I did my Erasmus, I did it in Rotterdam. And I remember exactly as you said, 1 or 2 weeks before study start, there are these weeks of bunch of social activities. And I very much remember that at the end of those weeks, I was so done. I was so socially done. I was like, I'm just not up for it anymore. And I thought to myself, I'm just going to push through so that I have made my foundation, I've made my friends.
Exactly.
And then later on, you can withdraw a bit more. That's at least what I experienced. I'm not saying this is the right fit for everyone, but it worked for me. Then later on, I could withdraw, when there were exam periods and I needed to be myself. I didn't feel nervous that I didn't have a network still. I knew that they were there. I knew I had met them. I knew I was in the groups. But it was somehow easier to just say, hey, I really just need to focus, rather than the other way around. And I think this is maybe particularly something that could be difficult for introverts. And that's why I'm interested in talking about it with you, because we have so often together talked about that you are more of an introvert than me, and still your advice is just do it, just meet those people. So I'm really interested in that is also your advice. And how was that for you, being somewhat more introvert than me?
I think in the beginning it's a bit hard to go to these events where you don't know anyone, and you just have to do it like instantly, How can I say that? Like, for example, in Frankfurt, there was this breakfast organized, and then I was a bit late because I had to still do administration at the reception and everything. And when I got there, like people were already sitting in groups, and then I was like, oh, that's intense. Like, what do I do now? Because they already had these conversations. And I was like, okay, you know what? I'm just gonna choose one where I like the people, and then sit there and say hello and say like, hey, can I join? And then I did that. And that's how I met my friends, like my whole circle of friends. And then there was also someone who was like super extroverted. And then later on, she also just wasn't scared to reach out to us on the streets at the university and say like, hey, can I join you? And then she also was a main part of that group eventually. So I think the most important is to do it and like get rid of your fears and just and just join, because it's really important. Even if you're a bit more introverted, I think it's still something that you need, because you can't just live off books or something. You need the human aspect as well.
Yeah, definitely. You need a network, you need to connect. And it's funny that you're saying, well, you just have to do it. And I consider myself an extrovert, and still, obviously, when you're in a completely new place with a lot of new people, it does drain you to some extent. It can be tiring, and you are nervous. And I've
Yeah,
even sort of developed this thing that if I really know I'm entering a space where I'm going to be out of my comfort zone, it's going to be intense, I say showtime. And then I just know, okay, for the next 8 hours, you just do it. And then when you come home, you can close the door, you can lock the door, and you can just be yourself, and you can, you know you did a good job. But you have to somehow, I imagine sometimes it's like almost like a performance. You step out of yourself, and you're not so much in your head, but you just stick that hand out, you do the handshakes, you introduce yourself, you just
get
do
out
it,
of your
and then
comfort
the whole
zone.
world-
Yeah, true.
Okay.
No, same. Yeah,
Very
I
good,
also
very
had
good,
this
good.
quote also written on my room the whole time I was like growing up. Like it's my favorite. It says like everything you want is on the other side of fear. And I think this is such a true one, because once you leave your comfort zone, like the story is like everything happens, and you can live in your comfort zone the whole life. But then what's the point of of living, I think, because you just have to get these new experiences, and then it will all work out, and you will be happy being all like looking back at your life like I did this, I did that. I think
definitely.
that's really amazing.
Okay, so what was it? Everything you want is on the other side of fear.
Yeah.
Wow.
I think it's really good. I think this is my favorite one. Yeah,
it almost pushes you to seek your fear and to overcome it instead of going around it. It almost you almost just want to, what am I afraid of? Let's do it.
But that's it. Like moving to Australia with all the snakes, like that scares me. Or leaving a stable job in this economy. It was also like, should I really do this or not? And then I was thinking like, am I afraid of doing it? Yes. Then should I do it? Yes. So I did it. I think it's a good way of, and then you are always proud of your decisions. It's like swimming with a shark. Yeah, you're scared, but if you think back at it, it's like the best story ever.
Definitely. I think that's a super good advice for students that might be a bit hesitant, and might think about all the things that might go wrong. Well, they will maybe go wrong, but you will learn so much from it, and you'll be super proud of it.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, well, thanks a lot, Zora, for sharing your experiences, your tips and tricks, and and your personal situation. Thanks a lot.
Yeah, thank you for having me, and good luck, everyone. Yeah.
Terima kasih Warga Budaya for listening and for being curious with me. In today's broadcast, we have talked about a lot of things, and I want to highlight what I believe are some of the most valuable statements from Dora. One of them is not this or that, but this and that, where Dora talks about not limiting your perspective on your opportunities, and I find that so beautiful. And the second one is a quote that Dora shares with us, where she says, everything you want is on the other side of fear. And I really want you to take that one in. Everything you want is on the other side of fear. It really somehow changes your perspective on what to do with fear. So really interesting one. And just to close off, I want to say that Dora and I have shared our experiences with living abroad and some of our tools we use to make a new space home. But these are obviously not universal tools, and they won't suit everyone. So I just want to say that it's super important that everyone finds what works for them. And I'm very curious to hear your experiences, and please do share how you cope with moving to a new city or country. And I apologize for any misperceptions or misrepresentation. We're talking about culture and language, sensitive topics, so I want to be mindful of that. And last but not least, I want to say have a great night, Warga Budaya. Dan sampai jumpa di siaran berikutnya. Bye bye.
Terima kasih. Anda sedang mendengarkan Radio Komunitas BBM FM 107,7 MHz.
Dipancarkan dari kawasan Balai Budaya Minomartani, Radio Komunitas